Most men our age won't say the word depression. We say we're tired, we're a little irritated, we're just kind of off. But at divorce, at our age, 60, 50, 70, it can hit harder than we admit. And if you don't recognize it, if you don't understand what's happening, it quietly runs your life. Hi, I'm Scott, and I make these videos so other older men like myself who are going through a divorce, who have gone through a divorce, who are going through some pain can learn from my mistakes. They can reclaim their lives. They can learn from my experiences and come out of it a better man. You know, Depression to me, it doesn't always look like sadness. It's like what we think about. We think sadness, most men. But really, it's not about crying. It's not about shutting down. That's really rarely how it shows up for us. We're different. We will be irritable. We'll be, have a short temper. We'll have those things like that. But we don't just display those classic things. And because of that, we often will not recognize that we're in a depressive state. You know, I found myself when I was depressed, I was snapping at little small things, and I didn't have all the motivation to handle all the stuff that I used to do all the time. I used to love to fix things. I'd love to be around the house getting things done, and it seemed like I was always busy. But then when my divorce took, I found that I had no energy. I just couldn't get myself to do anything. I couldn't get out of the house. A lot of people they sleep too much. That wasn't me. I didn't sleep too much. My problem was I didn't sleep enough. I was waking up constantly in the middle of the night. Okay. And one of the issues I had with that was alcohol. I was using alcohol to go to sleep. And that's not something you want to do. I also found myself kind of like scrolling, just kind of mind numbing stuff, activities that I would do, just to pass the time. I tell you, I honestly, I think I went through the internet 10 times and I finished it. I looked up everything, did everything, just was going through it, and I would do it again and I would do it again. It was just to pass the time because I was really I had that flat feeling, that feeling that of numbness, no emotion. It was just I couldn't function, and that's not okay. Yes, I was surviving, but remember, surviving is not the same as being healthy. Okay. I found also that one of the things I missed was kind of my identity. It wasn't just losing the relationship, it was my identity in the relationship. I loved being the family leader. I loved being the husband. I loved being that guy who would be counted on when everything else was going to crap. I would make it right. And then all of a sudden, that's gone. I'm just there. I'm by myself. You know, it it was it was that role that I cherished, and it's hard. It was hard. It was hard for me. I know it's hard for you. You know, um, I also the daily structure that I was involved in, that I was part of. Me and my wife, we had a structure. We had things that we were doing together. We knew we were a unit as one. And then when I lost that, it really made me feel like who I was. It was very unclear about that. It was like, who are you now? What am I? And that really kind of to me it disorients myself, and it just made me feel empty inside. And When those things kind of disappear, you have to realize that you got to rebuild who you are. It's not that you're a different person. It's just that you are not that same role and that same uh, person with your wife. That is gone. You just have to rebuild on who you are as a single man now. And here's another issue that I find when it comes to depression in an older man's divorce: isolation. Let me tell you, that hits you hard. Because if you're like me, your kids are gone, you're by yourself, you probably do not have very many friends, because all your friends, they're married, those friends' wives don't want you to hang out with them, or they're scattered all over the place because you've moved around, you've done other things. And it's not a world out there where older people, older single men, can make friends that easy. So your isolation affects you a lot. It makes things worse. Okay. And what we do and how we respond is usually we just go quiet. We stop calling friends. We don't want to explain to anybody what's going on. We're ashamed, we're afraid. We just don't want to look weak. We pull back. If you have any social activity, you pull back from that. You push everything inside, and that in itself magnifies all the negative things, because really the smaller your world gets, the heavier those negative things become upon you. It's like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, and it's an immense burden that is really, really, really hard to handle. So, and just by our nature, we don't reach out to other people, and because we don't do that, what happens? It causes everything to spiral downward even faster. And it, it's horrible. It's horrible. I know it. I stayed inside. I self medicated with liquor. And I found myself in a deep, deep, dark hole for a long, long time. And I didn't even realize it. I thought from my career, being a man, I could handle all these things. I was the person that wouldn't affect me, but it really, really did. And there's nothing, nothing to be ashamed about with that. You know, I would say one of the things you can do to stop this, okay, not only on your own, but I mean, not with someone else's help, but just start helping yourself, is kind of having some kind of movement in your life. When I say movement, I'm talking about just movement from the couch to outside. Get the hell out of your environment. That environment that you spend all your time in and you're isolated in is hurting you. You need to get up, get out, be around people. People, we are by nature social animals. We us men, we love our time alone. I love it. I just want to get away for a while. But too much of that is not good for you. So getting out and being about is really medicine for you. You also need to just think about just the exercise of it. Okay, getting a little bit of physical movement, a little bit of walking, lifting a little bit, doing something, just breaking a sweat, that maintains a basic physical and mental discipline in you. And it's really going to help you because your body influences your mind more than you know. You know, the physical activity is going to assist in your recovery, in your mental recovery, in just a huge fashion, more than you will ever know. And that leads to mental health. Okay. If you need help, there's no shame into finding and seeking mental health. It's not okay for you just to hold it in. We all need assistance. That's it's true. I grew up, and you all did too, with a time that you none of us thought we ever needed help on that part. We were men and we can handle it. We'll do it all. But you know what? I found I was so far gone and so far lost that I realized I needed somebody to talk to. I just needed to get this off my chest. And it was just making me physically ill inside. And I bet you many of you are thinking right now, and you're nodding your head, that's exactly right. That's exactly how you feel. You know, seek out therapy, guys. Seek it out. I did. I did. It's not the end all, it's a tool. It's someone you can talk to. Most of the time, right now, it's talking through an internet. You don't have to. When we think of therapy, we used to think about, oh, we got to go to the doctor's office. You got to lay down on a couch. Although the typical stereotypes that you thought. Well, most of it is done over the internet. When I did mine, I was so ashamed. I'll be honest with you. I was so ashamed of seeking that help. I put a little piece of tape over my camera. I could not look or have the doctor see me for about 4 sessions. I was like a little kid. And then finally, I just broke through, said, I'm going to take that off. And then I just started talking. And let me tell you, it was like lifting the world off my shoulders. It was huge. It helped me immensely. You know, I didn't have to go to see a medical doctor. Now, some of you may. Some of you may need medical treatment. You know, you may need a pill to calm down. You may need some of those medications. There's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because it's about getting better, getting back on track. So don't feel just because you have to take medication, it's something that you should be ashamed of. It's just a decision. It's a decision on your part. It's not failure, because you know what? Taking action is really strength if you think about it. Ignoring something is weakness. So remember, guys, depression at 60, it looks quiet and it looks like you can function. But if you face it directly, you know, you got to reconnect with people. You got to get out there and move. You got to get some activity going in your life and getting the help that you need. You give yourself a real shot at rebuilding yourself. And I tell you, I know all of you, because I did it, all of you, it will help that need it. So, guys, if you like this information, I ask you to just leave a like and subscribe. But more importantly, leave a comment. The comments are the most important thing that this program can do, this channel can do, because I only have certain answers based upon my experiences, my mistakes. There's thousands of you out there that can contribute way more information than I can, way more experience, way more mistakes that you've made. And the person who needs that help is looking for that. They're looking for you to provide them with that so they can get by too. And just always remember, guys, there is a life after life. Until the next one.